And all right, perfect. So for those who we haven't crossed paths before, my name is Shay Henderson, and I'm really excited to introduce Shirley to you, Shirley Thompson here in a few minutes. And she's going to share a lot about her work within the land-based world and her pedagogy and all how all that fits into the education space. A few things I wanted to mention that we're really trying to intentionally talk about is the two links that are in the chat. One being the link to the Youth on the Land website, which was initiated last year and published, and we're currently in phase two of building that website to a place where it's super functional and impactful for those who are doing this work in their home communities or their home territories. Lots of great things on there. If you haven't checked it out, from accessible grants that are either province specific or nationwide, lots of tools and resources around building programs and stories from people who are doing this work. And then also a program map, which is the second one, or the second link that's listed on there, is a link to a form to be added to the Youth on the Land program map. And if you haven't checked that out, I really encourage folks to go take a look. What it is those who have signed themselves up to be part of a collaborative network of folks who are willing to be connected by others regarding their program. So if Ren up in the Yukon just recently put their program on Rivers to Ridges, and it's a great chance for someone like myself who is always interested in different ways of approaching land-based programming and different audiences to reach out to Ren and see how they're approaching things in a different location and see what might be applicable to myself and my own home community in Churchill, Manitoba. There are a whack of different benefits. There's going to be more details coming out in the newsletter, and some of those upcoming benefits, aside from the shared learning and collaboration that happens between those network members, is also an opportunity to have some early information about some upcoming events, gatherings, spaces for network members. And then a little bit of fun stuff, some upcoming swag. We're working really hard on a logo for the network. And by signing up, we wanted to give a little small gift to folks who are signing up for the program map with the first limited edition toque once we're done working with our designer and our advisor around what that logo is going to look like. So stay tuned for that. And even if it's you've signed up for the program map before, it'll be retroactive. So everybody that's on the program map currently will get a toque. But on that note, that's my housekeeping. Really excited to have Shirley here today. For all those that are going to be watching the recording afterwards today, I hope there's opportunities to follow up if you have questions. I'm sure Shirley would be open to some questions even after today. But I won't speak for her because I don't want to sign her up for things that she's hasn't said herself. So give a 2 second introduction to Shirley, but I'll let her introduce herself properly. Shirley and I work together in a different capacity, but in land-based work. And I can say over the few years now that I've got to know Shirley, I've learned so much from her advocacy and her care for community and the work she does with youth. And she comes at it from not just a place of academic theory, but a place of lived experience. And it's so beautiful to see what she's been building in her home community of Pine Creek First Nation in Manitoba. And I am super honored that she was willing to share with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it to you, Shirley, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Shay. Thank you for providing me with this opportunity to share my work. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm coming to you today as with two roles. I'm a land-based teacher in Meneguzzi First Nation, and I'm also a university student in my third year of the PhD program. So my presentation today is called Dani Gikandan, which means coming to know. And I'm combining my research work and my community work for this presentation. Okay, my slide is not moving. me see. I'm gonna stop sharing for a sec. No, I'm running into technical
All good,
difficulties already,
all
Shay.
all good, Shirley. All good. Take the second you need to. It might just be the animation or something like that, but um,
Yeah, I don't think so. It was all set up perfect. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second
go
and
for it.
see what's going on. I'm gonna upload it again. Okay, here we go. Zoom. I'll try just sharing part of my screen, hopefully,
Perfect. Yeah.
or my desktop maybe. That's what I'll do. Okay. See. Okay, here we go. Can
Awesome.
we see that?
We're good.
Okay. So, presentation divided into four parts: a personal introduction, my research work, the outdoor learning space that we're creating at Nego CB, and some moving forward advice. Gina Nisha I call it, which means it's up to you. And I really want to stress my personal introduction because this has shaped who I am, not only as a community member, it's shaped me as a teacher, a PhD student, and also a classroom teacher. So positionality, I feel, is really important to be aware of as an educator working with students. We bring in our own identity, our own family experiences, and our community experiences that all shape into our positionality. And for me, I'm going to share a little bit about my background because I feel it's important because this has shaped the work that I'm doing today. So before me was my parents and my grandparents. On the map, this is a little section of the parkland. I grew up in Camperville in this little area. Here's my house right there. I know exactly the spot. And one of the things I wanted to share was my grandmother, my cuckoo, was born and lived in Pine Creek. She went to residential school, and then she married a non-Indigenous man, and she basically had to leave the community. So she settled in Camperville, very, as close as she could to her family members and her community. My dad's family is from Duck Bay, which is north of Pine Creek. So this is the area that I am from. So for a long time growing up, I would always ask, what am I? Because we live in Camperville. Camperville is known as a Métis community. I did have my Manitoba Métis Federation card in my young years as a teenager. And I always identified as Métis, and really what we were was non-status. And then in my 20s, I became a Bill C 3161 status Indian. So I always joke around with my when they say, "What are you?" I always say, "I'm a former Manitoba Métis Federation member with non-status designation, reinstated as a Bill C 31 status Indian." That's a mouthful. And when I read this book, it really reminded me of my dad. My dad, whenever I'd ask him what we were, he'd always say Anishinaabe. That was always his answer throughout his whole life with me. And when you translate Anishinaabe to English, it just means a person, a human. And I really like his philosophy and worldview because that's what we truly all are without all these labels or colonial legislation. So growing up in Camperville, I experienced bush culture. And I didn't come across this term until my first year in my PhD studies in a critical theory class with Peter Kulczycki. He talked about bush culture, and that's how I identify myself. Growing up with my family, these were typical activities that we did throughout the year. Berry and medicine picking. We always did spring fishing. We always had a garden. We harvested. My dad was a hunter, a very skilled hunter, trapper, snaring, and story was very much part of our culture. So that's how I grew up. That's my foundation. I wanted to share this picture of my dad. This was our family car. We would travel to Blueberry Patch every summer in this thing, and this is from the 80s. And yeah, my dad was 14 when he was on the trap line by himself. And I think about 14-year-old boys today, and I don't know if they could do that today. So I just wanted to share this. This is where I come from. Here's another picture. These are my parents. You see in the background the beaver pelts. So this was a common classroom in our house was the skinning room. So there's a wolf there, my mom and dad. So this is where I come from. These are my people. Time has passed, and I'm now a grandmother. And you'll see right here my grandson, my first grandson. He's in one of the traditional swings. It's a maple tapping going on in this picture. And that's one of the things that I want to see is my grandchildren having the opportunity and the space to be able to experience what I experience through the school system and in their own personal lives. Here's an updated photo of him in a sage patch. He's like 3 years old now. So we try to create opportunities for my children and my grandchildren to be on the land. So one of the things that I did growing up was I made a really deep connection with the land, and this is the area where I know the best. I know I live in Minnetonka now. I work in Pine Creek, and I know this area. We take students fishing. We take students medicine picking. So I developed a really strong relationship with the land. I just wanted to share a little bit about my professional background. I'm a teacher. I was a teacher first, and then I got my master's in 2019 in curriculum. And then for my PhD, I transferred to Indigenous Studies because that's what I naturally gravitated towards. And last year I did my candidacy, and so this year I'm working on my dissertation process. I've worked at Menegu ZB School in Pine Creek for a long time. I tried multi-grade for 1 year, and then I went into school as a full-time student for 2 years. And right now, since last September, I've been a land-based teacher at Menegu ZB School. For my research, I wanted to share a little bit about my research. I'm looking at the school system through a critical theory lens. I'm critiquing the form of education, like where we sit in rows and desks. The teacher is the expert. It's mainly paper tasks. I'm looking at the ideology of school systems, how Christianity and routines and discipline are part of school systems, including pedagogy, where again, teacher is the expert. So for my research, my lens is a critical theory lens. My main research question is looking at the obstacles of developing a land-based learning model in a school system. And one of the things that I didn't mention here is my research data is my personal journals. I've been journaling from September of 2024 to June of this year. Every day after work, I would do a journal about what I experienced, what I saw, what I learned, what I observed, and through there, I've been able to develop my data collection. And the secondary research question, which is really what's most important about this work, is how do land-based learning affect student autonomy and self-esteem? That's really important to me as well. So with my critical theory lens on, as I do this work, I really like this title, Capitalism and School System, A Strange Love Affair. And like critical theorists have been critiquing the school systems for a long time. It focused on industrialism, creating workers who are docile and obedient, and we reproduce the relations of production for a capitalist society. That's the foundation of my research for my PhD. So with my research, I'm looking at these theorists, Althusser, Debord, and so on. And I'm looking at ideology that is perpetuated in schools, how we make homogenous cultures, and how discipline and punishment is used to control students, power relationships with hegemony. I'm always forgetting about that word. And also about totalization, how Sartre believes like we're all numbers and we're all in a system. So I look at that through my research. In my research, I'm going to also look at the history of education and really focusing on Pine Creek because Pine Creek is a Ojibwe or Anishinaabe community. We had a pre-contact education model. We've experienced the colonial school system model, like the residential school. We did the day school as well. And right now we have an agreement with Frontier School Division, and who mandates the provincial education model. So through my research, I'm also critiquing the changes of education within Pine Creek. So in the pre-contact, and I'm just going to go over these just briefly. In pre-contact education model, this is what I summarized education to be. Education was sensory. It was what you heard, you saw, you felt, you tasted, what you observed. Learning was experiential. It was holistic. It wasn't based in today's classroom. It was very different. Elders were the knowledge holders. Learning was very interactive. And I really like Gardner's multiple intelligences theory that really reflects or comes as close to pre-contact education models. And the philosophy and worldview is embodied in land, language, story, and sometimes some people feel ceremony. So this is what I'm feeling that is really important to reflect in a school system. In the colonial education model, it's about in Canada's history, it was about nation building, but we also have to remember like the people that were here, Indigenous people and communities, and what happened. It was really like damaging, destructive, detrimental. So I look at power relations and how land was acquired. And it was all about capitalism, and the school system still perpetuates domination and exploitation of Indigenous people and community. So in my research, I really look at ideology that's perpetuated in school systems, Christianity, conformity, and the goal is capitalism. And then the pedagogy, the practices, standardized drills. We've all been through school systems. School has become a natural and normalized process for everyone almost. And so I really look at how ideology and pedagogy work together and create these students who are now going to go into the workforce, work field. And even myself, was perpetuating that train of thought as a classroom teacher. But now that I've gone on from my master's and my PhD, I really value and see the need for creating alternative forms in education. So in Pine Creek, this is a picture of the residential school. It ran from the 1890s to 1969 when the community finally decided that they were taking back their education and it was torn down. So it ran for many years, like my grandma was there, and a lot of my students, all their families are affected by residential school. At present, we're following the provincial education model, which focuses on these 5 areas: curriculum, lesson plans, outcomes, assessment, and data collection. So for the last, I would say probably the last 20, 30 years, there's been changes in the education system to blend or create spaces for more perspectives from an Indigenous perspective. And one of the things that I saw was I was an English teacher for a long time, and I felt like I was stuck in the classroom, which is what made me pursue my master's. So I did things and tried things and experimented to try and blend both Western and Indigenous. And in an English classroom with the expectations, the normalization of the process, it was a lot of work. Like Shay said earlier in the introduction, a lot of advocacy. So I wanted to incorporate Indigenous ways of being, doing, and knowing within my own learning environment, within my own I guess sense of power was to get students out of the classroom and onto the land. So quite a few years ago, I was teaching grade 10 ELA and I was thinking, how can I get these kids outside and meet the outcomes? So I thought, okay, I'm going to develop this rabbit snare unit and we'll journal, we'll demonstrate, we'll get out of the room basically. And one of the things I noticed was that the attendance improved. I had a lot of parent support when they heard that their kids were going snaring. They were making sure that their kids were going to school because they wanted to see their kids do something that they know about and they could share and they would be proud of them. And student engagement really increased with this class. Here's a couple of photos of the girls. If you see in this first picture, the school is right in the background, in the central far background. And so we would just walk behind the school, set some snares and check them for like 2 weeks. And then the second photos of a girl cleaning the rabbit, and she did a demonstration for us and kids wrote essays on this. So I thought, okay, I'm blending and it's happening. It was a really eye opener for me. And that's what made me pursue my PhD because I always felt I wanted to school the bush, but I just couldn't make it happen by myself. And then in 2019, after I had just completed my master's, I was able to teach a different course from English. It was called environmental science. So we went outside a lot. We did a lot of land-based work. So students spent time outside and they learned about traditional foods. Then COVID happened, so our class became virtual, and this was a big shift. This is where I called it Tea Time with Teacher, and this is a group of probably grade 10s at the time. We would go out behind the school and we'd make a fire and they would share story. And this was part of our environmental class. I really enjoyed it because the students took on roles. Like one person would gather wood, one person would get the supplies, one person would make the fire, and they all had roles, and it just naturally evolved. I didn't have to do much teacher led direction or instruction. So it was like this is a picture, but the story behind it, it's so powerful. When I was teaching grade 3 and 4, because I was teaching a full class and I had a full day with students, I wanted to create some opportunities to get on the land. And in this picture, there's grade 3 and 4s. This is in Pine Creek. You could see the church behind us, and not far from that church was the residential school. And it was so, I feel this is like the juxtaposition of the sage and the church behind, where the former side, that's powerful because our students were practicing an indigenous way of being right by that old school site. So I really enjoy this. I really find this picture meaningful to me and to my community because we're doing things that are our way. And when we did this, like the grandparents were so happy that we did this with the kids. The boy holding with the hand, like his great grandfather went to that residential school, and I know them very well, so they were really pleased to see their great grandson out there. So one of the things that with the few things that I could do within the school system without changing anything, I really felt and believed that land-based learning is where I wanted to shift towards because of these factors. It's experiential, it's holistic, it's multisensory, it uses multiple intelligences, not just numeracy and literacy. It strengthens the student's identity and it builds community. That's so important with the school system in Pine Creek. So last September, I became a land-based teacher. That was my title. And through a lot of advocacy, a lot of meetings with Shay as well in our school system and the community, I was able to begin and what I call my experimental year because there was no model. I was creating and making at the same time. So this was one of my first trips last September. That's me in the talking there with the sunglasses on. So I took grade ones out and we traveled to a sage field and we spent the afternoon outside. And I've done this plenty of times and just in September, we had two other schools in Frontier join us for medicine picking experiences. So it's really grown. And I really believe like students have to get on the land to develop that relationship. And the following section is a bunch of photos and activities that I've done throughout the year. Every year we've had a culture camp for a long time, and this is a photo of me and the kids. A hunter dropped off a moose, and for a lot of these students, this was their first time dressing a moose, so it was a really special thing to witness for these students because you could just see the shift. Like, once they understood what they were doing, you could see the pride, you could see how happy they looked, they were engaged. It's been such an amazing year at MES. Where we have a lot of relationships in the school system with the community. It's very supportive, and so we get gifts like this, what you see in front of us, a bunch of moose legs, and students are involved. Like we're in the background as teachers, and they're the ones learning. They're the ones that are trying. They're the ones that are feeling, sensing. So I feel like we've been really developing a strong land-based program at MAS. One of the things we have in our community is a community garden. And so, because I've worked in Pine Creek for 20 plus years now, I have solid relationships with community members. So the counselors, like, of course, bring the students to the garden, of course. And it was really interesting. Like, students were really, like, you think like gardening is common, but a lot of students did not have experience gardening. So, like, I'm a gardener, so I was able to share some skills and, it was really interesting. Like the grade ones, they were counting the potatoes and like they were just amazed by how many potatoes come out of one potato hill. And these were all the type of things that I've been journaling along the way for my research. We're very blessed with resource people in the community, knowledge holders, knowledge keepers. We have Christy Anderson who works for NMFCCC, and she has been working with me all year long. I didn't hide, and that's a first picture of us just flushing it. And then in the community, we have community members, hunters, snares, fishermen that will donate items for our program. And the first picture you see, the boys are plucking ducks. And it was so cute that day at school because the little girl in pink, she was plucking ducks. And then she's skipping down the hall at the end of the day. I plucked a duck today. She's telling everybody that she met For me, that's so powerful that our kids are gaining skills and that they're happy, like they're so happy that they can try and do something. In our community, we're very blessed to have bison. So one of the things that I want to do, because it's in a different area of the community, I try to take students out onto the land as much. So this is the grade 2 and 3 class, I believe. They're out just observing the bison. And one of the things that happened in this particular activity is we always start in circle. I create a circle of students. I talk about what we're going to do, what we're going to see, and we always end in circle with a closing circle. And in our closing circle, the teacher and I kind of moved away from the circle and we let the kids do the circle on their own. And it was really interesting. They shared such personal information, stories about their families. And one of the things that was special about the circle was after everyone shared, a kid would go hug the kid that shared, and it was just random. And it was so powerful for both me and the teacher to experience that and witness that, that these kids were strengthening their circle when they're on the land, and especially after they saw how the bison protected that little newborn. So in the school, this was the first place of our outdoor learning space. You can see, I like that saying, if you build it, they will come. That's what this picture should be titled. So one of the challenges in my research is like the policy, the documentation, the forms. Sometimes it can be overwhelming as a teacher to fill out all the forms required to take students on the land. So we decided to create a space at the school where students can access the land and not have to do all the documentation process that goes with it. So we started with a fire pit, and we have story. They do cooking, and we're lucky with our location. We're near the bush, and there's some fields, and the lake is really close by. So we were able to use the site often and regularly throughout the school year. We do a lot of snowshoeing, so like I said, we're very lucky. We can leave right from the school, snowshoe in the field, snowshoe in the back, and students, for the first time, for many of them, was their first time snowshoeing. And one of my perks about my job is like when they see me, they're like, "Can I go with you? Can I go with you? Can I go with you?" Because they know we're going to be outside, we're going to be doing something hands-on, and it's going to be multi-sensory. And one of my colleagues were like, "You're the favorite teacher in the whole school." And I said, "Well, because I take them outside, we have fun all the time. It's always guaranteed fun when we're doing land-based learning." These are pictures of probably the grade ones, I believe, on the left. They're ice fishing. We took them out quite a bit. And again, we worked with community, like we worked with NMFCCC to purchase equipment, supplies, etc. I worked with Shay to get advice throughout the school year. And in the second picture, I took the students in the bush, and my coworkers, they say, "I want to do this. Can we do this?" So they supplement the land-based activities with their classroom activities. So the grade ones were making, I believe, bird feeders. And one of the things that I really like about this activity was one of the parents told me later that her grade one son was so impressed that a teacher could make a fire on snow. Like he was just blown away. Like, so I was like, yay! So those are like, this is again, is we go all over the community for our land-based learning. So one of the things we did, again, through NMFCCC and with Shay's advocacy and support, we were able to create an outdoor learning space within our school grounds. So you can see the students are working on setting up the teepee. Last year, I had a lot of help and support from my coworkers because they believe in land-based learning, and they really support because we've been together for a long time. They know what I'm passionate about, and they support me in many ways. So I had a really huge support with our industrial arts teacher, our shops teacher. He worked with me quite a bit on different activities throughout the year. So second semester, because I'm high school and my land-based learning is from grade 1 to 12, I'm spread out. But last year, I was able to teach this grade 11 land-based course. And one of the things I noticed, especially with high school students, they don't dress for the outdoors. So in February, it's cold. So the month of February, we spent creating grub boxes, and these are a traditional, useful tool to have when you're out on the land. So all of the students in that course were able to create a grub box. So not only were they expressing their culture, they were expressing their artistic side. They were gaining some basic carpentry skills. and they were gifted, some of the students gifted these boxes to their family members. So it was a really nice experience for the students. Every spring we go fishing, we travel to our usual spring runs. And one of the things I've witnessed time and again with the land-based learning is like how happy students are to do like something like catch a fish, like for a lot of students this past year, it was the first time for a lot of things. First time snowshoeing, first time getting a fish, first time plucking a duck, first time touching moose so closely. So it's been a lot of firsts for these students. This is my grade 11 class. I tried to take them out as much as I can, and they are now grade 12, and I'm teaching them grade 12 English right now, and they're like, I wish we had a grade 12 land-based course because they know the value of the course. So some of the things that I'm seeing through this work is students are highly engaged, they're sharing stories, they're gaining a lot of skills, like they're chopping wood, they know how to make a fire, they're doing tree identification, they're becoming more observant when they go out on the land, they connect with elders. Like I have so many pictures, but this is a short presentation. We try to get elders into the school. We have an elders room as well that we just initiated last year, and students are connecting with the land, which is the goal of the whole program. So I just wanted to share some things about moving forward in a school system. Kina Anish means it's up to you. So one of the things that I really stress in my research and in my daily work is relationality. This is a famous quote by Wilson. Because I've been in this community so long and I'm a community member, I've developed a relationship with the land, I've developed a relationship with the water, I've developed a relationship with the people, including the students, parents, grandparents, elders, knowledge keepers. So relationality is a really huge part of my research. So some of the things that I really want to stress, especially for other land-based teachers or people that are wanting to develop land-based learning activities, is we have to have respectful teaching practices. You have to know the land you're on, and that's something I've really learned. Like I don't know Pine Creek as intimately as I know Camperville because I know all the bush in Camperville because I spent a lot of time on there. So knowing the land is really important. And it's really important to know community protocols. Like one of the things about my land-based learning, which is different from ceremonial land-based learning, is you have to be respectful and know like where the community is at about certain topics or practices. And one of the most important practices is validating Indigenous knowledge, validating and understanding that Indigenous knowledge, there's room for it in a classroom, there's room for it in learning, there's room for it in school systems. Three more in respectful teaching practices. One of the huge parts of our activities is story. Students will share stories. You will learn about students. You will learn so much more about students in a circle than having them write an essay or a journal or a paragraph. Students love to share. And it's really important to build relationships with elders and knowledge holders. And one of the things that I try to do, like when Christy comes to the school for high tanning, is I usually try to have an elder present. And sometimes they're just there's like I tell them just be. That's my instruction, just be, or my advice. And then students will come up to them and they'll have conversations and then they'll learn stuff and I'll learn stuff and I'll observe. So it's really important to involve elders in your land-based learning practices. And land-based learning should be experiential. It should not be, let's read about this thing. I feel like embodying practices for students will create the knowledge, skills, and values that reflect who they are, what their community is, and who they are as a people. So I just wanted to summarize. These are the activities that we did from September of last year until June. We did medicine, we did garden right from seed to supper table. It was really good to see. We have culture camps. We do sharing circles all the time. One of the things that I stress with students is, especially when I did the grade 11 land-based course, is observe nature. What do you notice? What do you see? What do you hear? So that's been big on my teaching practice. Students have been involved in hunting camps. We have the bison ranch, snowshoeing, winter fires and storytelling. We do ice fishing, nature walks, grub box making. spring fishing, and we're almost finished our first hide as a school, well, our second hide as a school, where are doing the whole process. So it's really exciting. And also stories, ceremonies, songs, and language lessons. So this is part of our outdoor learning space, and it reflects our way of life. I just want to conclude with my presentation. Here's me, November of 2024. I started staking out our fire pit. And here's our outdoor learning space. We have prospector tents. We have a teepee. Since this photo has been taken, our students built a sweat lodge, and we just had a sweat 2 days ago. So we've had two sweats already on our school grounds. We have a wood shack storage. We have our garden boxes. I know this is a lot in 30 minutes, but this concludes my presentation. So if anyone has any comments or questions, and there's my email if you'd like to contact me or have further discussion. Okay, Shay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate that. It is a lot of information, but it's all very valuable information. And I love the way that you frame everything as being like this community approach, right? From kids to educators to elders, like we all have a role to play, and it's like gets us away from that sage on a stage approach to education that is so pervasive. So, I had a question, but I'm gonna open it up to the floor first because I know like I want to respect the time and I can talk with you lots afterwards. So
Yes.
did
I
anyone
only
have
have 5 minutes.
yeah, so do we have any questions for Shirley
Comments?
or comments? Yeah. I'll kick us off then. Feel free to put it in the chat. Um, okay, so positionality is something that when I went through teacher training is something that like we never learned about. It wasn't something that I was exposed to until I went into master's education, and that was only because it was a master's of Indigenous education that I actually learned about what positionality means. Um, I was curious about your perspective because I don't think positionality is just important within an education sphere, right? Like we have lots of people coming from different sectors like education and health and stewardship, nation building. So like, can you shed your feelings, your thoughts about like just why that positionality is so foundational for anyone, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, engaging in this work?
Well, that's a loaded question. Okay, so I only have a few minutes.
Sorry.
Um, so schools create curriculum. Schools have political agendas, right? And I feel curriculum is politically driven because it's designed for the school system, for capitalism, etc. We call education or curriculum standardized, but as teachers, we're not standardized. We bring in our beliefs, our positions, our views, and we affect the students. So I really one of the things that I've learned through my master's, like, of course, my perspective widened through my master's, through my PhD work. And we as teachers, we have to be critical about what we're bringing into the classroom, because we are with students every day and we're the one of the biggest influencers. So if we influence them one way, we're affecting our future. Oh, you're muted, Shay.
I was just saying, I appreciate that. It was a loaded question, but that was a beautiful answer. So thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Go ahead, Cheryl.
So my question is about land-based learning directly. Um, I'm helping other school divisions try to work out their programs in the best way possible, and so similar to a lot of the work that you're doing, this particular school division is not on First Nations land, and they are wondering about safety rules and regulations and laws surrounding wild meat consumption and giving it to the kids to take home at the end of the day. And, you talked about forms and things like that. Like we're giving kids knives to work with, and they're witnessing large game being put down, that type of thing. Do you have knowledge of an easy way around this, or is there someplace where you get this information from? Shay, you might even be able to answer that. That's what I'm getting a lot of questions from our community partners about that, and I don't know.
Right. I think Manitoba Ed is working on policy about wild game, right?
Yeah, I mean, they are. There was some consultations from the province, from both Manitoba Education and Manitoba Conservation, because there's multiple departments that get involved in that, and it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Excuse the pun in that one because it has to do with wild meat. But yeah, and I think that's what like kind of the answer is that like it's like these systems are the ones that have to shift, and so pushing on those systems, right? And then a lot of folks are working within I guess like sections within that system. So say it's a school, it's within a system. And so really pushing the boundaries of like changing those systems, pushing against those like colonial contexts, I think is where the answer is lived. Like if there is a demand for this and it's coming directly from community, that's always seems to be like the starting point for making really serious change. And as enough communities start to rally around that saying, yeah, yeah, we feel the same way too. We feel the same way too. This is valid and important for our children, for the youth in the community, for the future of the community. Though that's where I've started to see like those changes really to get traction. Not saying it's an easy path or a fast one either, because we all know how politics work. Politics are slow, but that seems to be the answer. I'd have some stuff to share with you after, Cheryl. That's kind of that some ideas that are being worked on right now, and I think you might be interested in as well.
Thanks.
Okay, Megan, I'm just respecting Shirley's time, and I was going to say it's your you get the last question.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry, Shirley, I know you have to run, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the information and the wisdom and the inspiration that you've shared. I'm phoning from Wasanich Territories here on southern Vancouver Island, and I'm a settler from Dauphin, Manitoba. Actually, moved out here with my family. Been out here for about 20 years or so. I'm phoning and joining as an interested parent to support land-based education, and wondering what might some of because we have some outdoor facilities. I want to help support and encourage outdoor learning as a parent, but I know that you have to get the educators to do it, and to make it easy for them. So from your perspective, what are some of the main challenges that we could try to overcome when we're either building infrastructure or looking at policies that can help teachers make that kind of leap to that land-based learning?
Well, this is another loaded question because for me, because I live in the community for a long time, worked in the community, and I know sometimes I would say I could get fired today. Like that's the honest truth because we overlooked some of the safety issues and not only safety, but I mean, um, if we confine ourselves or narrow ourselves just to protocol, like within our educational trips, things get a little bit too regimented, and then it's not as natural or as organic because we lose some of that. It's such a difficult. One of the things that I struggle with is the school system is all about policy and land-based learning within a school system. There are roadblocks for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I have to go. My time is. I told Shay I have to leave, but Shay and I work together, and this is one of the issues we're having. So I'm going to leave Shay with to finish answering that question, if you don't mind, Shay.
Yeah, I'll throw something in
Thanks.
there. If you have to hop off, Cheryl, or not Cheryl, Shirley, feel free. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm gonna hang out until 1 o'clock and chat some more if more questions want to flow in, and I'll try and do my best to answer your question too, Megan. But thank you, Shirley. We'll say bye to you
Yes,
first.
thank you. It's nice to meet you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Just my thoughts on that question because yeah, we run into it. I've been in education in different capacities for a number of years. And I think the question that needs to start getting asked is kind of the legitimizing of certain policies that are in place and like how those policies got there. And the example I often give is I work with a gentleman who's navigated waters and land of northern Manitoba for 40, 50 years. And on paper, and I'm sorry, and I've been in his community 5 times in my life. And on paper, I'm more qualified to be navigating those waters and lands than he is by the school division's protocols and policies. And the question I've been asking is why? Like, why is that? If the ultimate goal is safety for youth, why is that the safer route? And so by asking those questions, it's starting to see shifts in kind of the justification of policy, or at least the gaps in how those policies are actually not creating safe spaces for youth. They're actually limiting youth participation because what ends up happening is teachers say, okay, like, I guess we're just not going to go. Oh, or and if you're outside of the education sector, people just like, it's just the system is saying that we cannot do this safely. When typically there's lots of folks in those communities that do have the knowledge, experience, and skills to keep those safe learning spaces. Um, so that's one for sure. One route about it. I also think that when it comes to anyone, and I'm speaking from myself as like a non-Indigenous person who's always on a learning curve for understanding land-based learning and how that can impact folks, it's creating those entry points and like whether I've worked with a number of people who like their entry point is like significantly lower and they see like all the great things that can happen from land-based learning, that becomes a daunting task. But sometimes just exposure is important, right? We don't have to be at a 10 our first time stepping out in the land. We can be at a 1, and that's still valuable progress. I would love to connect you up with some folks because I know some folks out in Wasanich territory that might be interested in talking to you, and they work within the school divisions or this. I don't know what they're called in on the island there. If they're
Yep.
divisions, it
Mhm.
changes from province to province. So, but like I'd be interested in connecting you up because they work in the school system, and she is an active person getting kids out in the land. She's Métis, and she just has a really welcoming perspective on how that can be facilitated both in the schools, but also supported outside, as you're speaking from a parent's perspective as well.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. There are a pile of links in the chat to some of the collaboratives, and Cheryl, thank you for sharing some resources in there as well. Um, any other thoughts or questions? Otherwise, we'll close it out for the day. But like I said, I'll be here till 1 if you wanna chat some more about anything.
Shay, I'll ask one if
Yeah,
that's okay.
of course.
Like for anybody really I'm driving. Sorry if it's hard to hear me, and I've kind of been half listening as I've been driving. But I wonder, like Cheryl or others, just like I'm curious about those links between stewardship and land-based learning that happens in schools or in other places and communities. And like have you guys seen examples of like kids that have kind of gone through school and are now working in kind of like lands or resources or stewardship roles within community and kind of seen land-based learning contribute to capacity building for community in that way at all?
I could speak to it, but I'll let you speak to first. Anyone first, if anyone wants to share.
I can talk to you anytime, Shay.
That's why I'm
No,
not.
but I want to hear your
I don't want to talk yet because I'll let other people have their thoughts first.
okay,
So,
thanks. Sorry, just teasing you.
so for me, I live in the Opaskwayak Cree Nation, and our school division here in the on the town side, Kelsey School Division, has only been participating in land-based learning for a short time. So to really think about that kind of a I don't think it's really available at this point. Like the kids in grade 12 or moving on to grade 12 probably have not had as many opportunities to be out on the land and to discover that part of their life through their school programming. But I've been a 4-H volunteer for many, many years in the PA and OCN, and I can absolutely say that several of the students that have gone through 4-H in this area have pursued education and careers with land stewardship, in conservation, in agriculture, those types of careers. So I don't know if that answers your question completely, but it's a little bit. And the kids are curious, and that's one of the things here that the educators do during the day when the kids are out on the land. They talk about the different fields that they can get into through this type of work. But I think that the focus here right now is, and because it's so new, is just getting kids um, to learn and to see opportunity and to gain skills into to what was once traditional to their families. So that's more of the focus right now for Kelsey School Division. But absolutely, we would love to continue getting kids and encouraging them to pursue that field for sure.
What was that program that you said you've been volunteering with, Cheryl? French?
No, it's called 4-H.
Oh, 4-H. Sorry. Okay. Right. Yeah, yeah, okay. I have heard of that one.
Good one.
Yeah, I think that's such a tricky thing, hey, that like, well, I mean, a lot of programs are so new and it's kind of like it takes like decades for kids to grow up and kind of see what they decide to do with that seed that's been planted within them. And that can be a challenge for funding too, because sometimes people want to know, like, what's the impact going to be right away? And you're like, okay, well, a kid that's in kindergarten right now, like, you're not going to know exactly I mean, you will know some impacts, like kind of immediate impacts, but it takes longer to see what the long-term impacts are.
Right. And one of the things that Shirley said was with families getting excited and being involved because this is something that is familiar to them. Where we live, it in the paw, um, these things are not familiar to our Indigenous families because that was taken away from them. So they're excited about it, but for a different reason. They're excited about it because it's being given back to them. And we had a bison harvest this week, and it was grade 6 kids. And one of the things that one of the parents said was that her child was so excited that he could provide for his family. So that statement there was a huge impact on us as well because the we're giving these kids an opportunity to see that they can provide for their family. So it goes in a lot of direction, and right now we're excited about getting kids just coming to school and being able to participate in land-based learning. And that is definitely a goal for us, is to encourage future education and employment in those areas.
Go ahead, Megan.
I just put some ideas in the chat of things that I've heard other people using to help kind of channel youth towards careers or opportunities. One is the Canada Summer Job Program. I don't know if those are being used by different communities, but I know some um, nations off of the coast here are using that to fund a lot of their stewardship and kind of ecotourism work that's leading to different skills around maintenance, building docks, that type of thing. There is, I think, 2 existing Youth Climate Corps projects, one on the North Island here, but there's also been that new funding from the federal government. I don't know how communities or organizations get those positions in, but that might be another avenue. And then one that I've been percolating on is, I know for our school kids, would they have to do a certain number of hours of volunteer work before they can graduate, and how many, and how do you get on that list to be a host for those youth hours, and could there be some kind of stuff that channels them into different stewardship related pieces of work? And then I've also put in there a link to an annual report for climate funding that is in BC. That was community hosted an intern that was specifically for climate change related work around stewardship fish and that. So that might be another option, is they wanted to grow that expertise by investing in one of the youth that, I'm not sure how they identified the youth. They might have probably hand chosen them, but yeah, those were a couple ideas that came to mind.
Thank you for those, Megan. Yeah, appreciate that. I was gonna say, just adding into this kind of conversation around where those connections or the role that education has to play, right? Like, I think sometimes education has this like slippery slope of existing within a bubble, where like it is not necessarily meshing with kind of the responsibility that others have in building these strong youth advocates, these people who are gonna like carry the future generation forward, right? And so part of it is recognizing like just all of the different folks that come and play in terms of raising a youth, raising a kid. And I'm always reminded, like when conversations like this come up, there's like a David Attenborough quote that I think needs to be like shifted to be less about like use of the resources and more about being in relationship with the land. But he always like there's that quote about him speaking in order for kids or youth to actually, care about the future of the land and nature, they need to understand it, they need to immerse themselves in it. And kind of going back to Megan's original question around like getting kids more involved in that so that 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years down the road, they're stewards, they're advocates, is they actually need to be out there. And the school system has definitely taken a step back around risk. And kind of perceptions of what it's like to be out in the land that prevent some of those relationships, that healthy relationship with land and water to build. I don't know if you ever come across, there's a researcher, Brusoni is the last name, I believe. Megan, you might be interested, or anyone might be interested, but it's all around healthy risk. And risk as a necessary component of learning. That could be an important piece if you're ever interested in pushing on your school division to make some serious changes in the way that they, instead of looking at it risk and risk management, look at it as safety and care because risk is unavoidable, and it's healthy learning as well. I also threw a few other. I was just at Inspire, the national gathering last week, and came across a few organizations that are also offering opportunities for youth to explore stewardship roles as young stewards. Students on Ice is one, and Water First has some internship program that brings the internship to the home community as well. So, and Water First will be potentially presenting at one of these VLCs in the coming months, so they'll have more information to share about that. Good question, Zara. Good question. You got us thinking. Um, it is 1 o'clock. We don't have to shut it down if there's still comments or questions, but also want to respect that we only booked a segment of time. Um, unless there's any other thoughts or questions, we'll leave it there, but I'll open it up to the floor one last time.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
My name is Foster Tom. I'm from the Chalath First Nation. I'm a newly elected counselor. Um, I just wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to be here. It's kind of pretty cool. Uh, it gave me a few ideas for some of the stuff that we have going on. Um, our school is trying to get more into the land-based learning, and yeah, it gave me a few ideas. It was pretty cool.
Glad you joined Foster and like obviously like these are these once a month times to connect. And sometimes we were trying to squeeze so much in this. So always feel free to like add to the discussion through social media or say like, hey, we should do this more often, or we just want to have a big conversation about how we want to move this forward for supporting your school and the work that's happening in your home community. I think the beauty of this is that we are all coming at this with one common goal, and that is impacting youth. And I think that there's enough knowledge in that space to really make some meaningful impact. So yeah, I'm happy you're here, and I'm hoping to see you more often as well. Okay, well, on that note, thank you for everyone that was able to join us. There is, just the holiday season always being a little bit crazy. There isn't going to be VLC for December, but we will be back in January, and you'll see that advertised through the newsletter and social media. We're also going to be doing a call out to folks in the network to get ideas about the types of VLC content that you'd like to have, or topics of discussion, or different presenters. So stay tuned for those in the newsletter. Otherwise, though, again, have a beautiful weekend. Hopefully, winter is coming on in a very amazing, beautiful way as well. It's slowly hitting northern Manitoba here. But have a great weekend again, and thank you.
Thanks so much. Take good care.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
See you.